I told everyone in the toast that my brother had slept with my ex-boyfriend years before after my parents sneaked him to my wedding. It looks like his pregnant wife has now asked for a divorce. I'm sorry ahead of time that this is such a long read. I married Meg, 25F, last week. She is the love of my life. The wedding was beautiful, but there was a lot of drama that wasn't needed. Not only that, but my brother may be getting a divorce because of what happened. Also, my family is always pushing me to make things right, but I really don't think I'm to blame, which is why I'm here asking for help. Colin, my 34-year-old brother, and I don't get along. If you ask my brother and I, we were pretty close when we were kids. It was not perfect. We fought sometimes when we were kids, but our relationship as brothers was never strange. I knew he had my back and he knew I had his. Family was always important to our parents, and they tried to teach us the same things. I feel bad that I was the only one who followed these rules. She and I have been dating for 6 years. He is 32 years old now, and I am 26. Everyone around me knew how much I loved her. She was friends with the people I was hanging out with at the time, and as soon as I saw her, I fell in love with her. I thought she was the real deal. She was tall, beautiful, smart, polite, and attractive all around. I forgot all about her poison because I was so interested in her. She was really dangerous, boy. When we first started dating, trouble took over my whole life. She was a great girl, but she wasn't the right person for me. We were completely unable to get along. It was really mean of her. While I was very calm and collected, she actually liked drama a lot. About once every 2 weeks, there was a new fight over something that didn't seem important or random to me. I was crazy about her, though, so I kept ignoring all the signs that something was wrong. I found out she was having an affair with a friend after 6 months of dating her. When I found out by mistake, it broke my heart. She kept denying it until I pushed her, at which point she gave up and told the truth. Even though I was sad, she apologized a lot. She said she was sorry for what she did and would do everything she could to earn my trust again. I put too much faith in her. I knew it wasn't right, but I gave her another chance. I've always thought that cheaters don't change, and no one has ever shown me to be wrong. In my life, I've met cheaters in many forms, and none of them were able to change how they behaved. Even though I knew all of that, I gave her a chance because I thought, or rather hoped, that this time would be different, and she wouldn't be like the others. I made a mistake. For the first 2 weeks, everything was fine. I began to trust her again, because I thought we might be able to get over the sorrow and start a new life together. 3 or 4 months after I found out she was cheating, I just couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She was acting in a sketchy and shady way. I thought she was okay with what she did because I didn't have any proof and didn't want to think she was stealing again. But it kept getting worse until I finally asked her if she had anything to say or if something was going on. She got very angry and said I was suspicious of her for no reason, and that I should have told her if I was going to never trust her again so she wouldn't waste time trying to get it back. She basically lied to me to make me believe that I was being too suspicious and that everything was okay. Yes, I did believe her. Not being sure of myself was making me feel nervous, even if I was a fool. She kept acting strange for a few weeks. I started quietly listening in on her phone, even though I didn't have any proof, because I was sick of going over everything so much. At that point, I should have known the relationship was over. I shouldn't have stayed there even if I hadn't found anything on her phone. My total lack of trust in her should have been enough for me to leave immediately. I'm glad I asked, though, because I learned something that changed my life forever, and it hasn't been the same since. What was going on was so clear when I finally did understand. It felt like someone hit me in the face. She had basically been cheating on me for a while. But not with anyone. It was Colin instead of me that she was seeing. The pain I felt when I saw those texts is something I've never felt before. The two people who were supposed to be closest to me were doing the dirtiest work for me. I read something that made no sense to me. It only made me want to cry so hard I could not hold back tears and fall to my knees. Shay walked in at that very moment and saw me holding the phone. I showed her the chat I was reading, slammed the phone against the wall, and left. She yelled at me and said I had no right to be in her private space. I think I walked for 3 or 4 hours. I didn't answer the calls she made to me. When she saw that I wasn't going to talk to her, she made Colin call me. His one phone call and several texts saying I want to explain, and it's not what you think didn't go over well with me. I wasn't going to believe anything else, and what I had seen was enough proof. I texted Shay the next day to come get her things from my house. I didn't answer the phone when she called me again. For the next 3 days, I felt a little numb. I didn't have anyone to talk to. I thought it was great that she easily packed up her things and left. Colin didn't try to get in touch with anyone after that, and how could he? What could he say to me now that he had done what he did? That being said, I think I called my parents about a week later and told them what happened. They were upset about what was going on, but they stood by me at first when I told them Colin was dead and I wasn't going to be going home. During the first few months, they helped me and held Colin responsible as well. From what I can tell, Colin got very defensive and told them that he and Shay were dating. I'm glad they didn't believe him, because I think that he was lying. I cut ties with Colin and went to therapy instead. After understanding in therapy how bad Shay was for me, I started to truly believe that God had saved me through this whole thing, even though it hurt like hell. I slowly got over what happened, but I didn't talk to Colin again and I never forgive him. After a few months I met Meg, and the rest is history. Before we started dating, things were calm and relaxed between us. This was not the case with my friendship with Shay. I didn't tell anyone in my family about Meg until a few years after we decided to get married. She knew about my situation with Colin, how far apart we were, and how nervous I was about telling my family about her. When I told my parents we were getting married and gave them to her, they were thrilled. I think they were also happy. They told me they were happy for me and told me how great it was that I met someone. Their words made me smile even more. They were so happy that we could be a real family again. When I asked what they meant, my mom told me that Colin and Shay were no longer dating and that I was no longer interested in Shay. I could live with Colin as a brother now that everything was over. I was shocked and insulted that she would even think of such an idea, but I tried to show her respect and see things from her point of view. I told her that the truth was that my brother had slept with my girlfriend behind my back, even though I knew she thought everything was fine now that I had moved on and Colin and Shay were no longer together. My mom knew I would never forgive him or forget about this without a fight. It was less about Shay and more about Colin's skill to trick me in that way. I told my mom this, and she got mad. She told me I needed to understand that Colin and I are brothers and must always be with our family. As a family, we should always support and be there for each other, I told her. This little lesson should have been taught to Colin too. I told her that I was the one who had been hurt and that he was the one who could keep the hurt feeling inside. When things got bad between my mom and me, my dad stepped in to help me. He told my mom to stop putting pressure on me to do something I didn't want to do. Mom agreed, even though it was clear she didn't like it. Mom tried to get Meg to help me understand during the awkward dinner. Just now, Meg told me that she thought I could make my own decisions and that she thought I would forgive Colin if the time came. Mom was pretty angry by this point. She had a perfect picture of how our family was and will always be. I don't know why or how she thought I would forget about this and move on. Furthermore, she refused to admit that the act was over and that things would never be the same in the family again. When Dad told Mom that they wouldn't talk about it again, Mom agreed. Our relationship was tight for a while, but it got better over time. She tried to be very aware of her boundaries and didn't talk about Colin again. So, I had no reason to complain. I didn't know that my parents were planning a small plot to ruin my wedding. Meg's mother and mom both helped get ready for the wedding. She knew ahead of time how many people would be there, what they should wear, what they needed to do to get ready, and other important things. During the operation, my dad didn't do much. Mom didn't do anything out of the ordinary during the whole planning phase. Colin was never brought up at all. In fact, she told me she felt bad about pushing me so hard that day, and that she had begun to believe that there could be a way to make things better, but later realized that Colin had hurt me in the worst way possible. So I didn't have any reason to doubt her or question her intentions, but I was wrong. Richard Rick, 32M, my best man and a friend from school, rushed up to me on the day of the wedding and told me I had to take care of something right away. I asked him, "What's going on?" He also said that Colin, his wife, and their parents had arrived at the place. I was very angry. At my order, Rick told them to leave, but they wouldn't. He said he did everything he could to keep them from bothering anyone. He told them that seeing Colin would make me sad, and that he wasn't invited. My mom says they are linked though, and since Colin is my real brother, I would always choose him over Rick. Yes, Mother. I asked them right away to explain because I couldn't believe they were planning all of this without telling me. What the hell was going on? I called my dad and asked him a question. Adding Colin and his wife was important to them because they didn't want the family to think there was a rift between the two brothers, he said. According to him, I could only put on a show for a few hours. After that, everyone could go back to normal. He admitted that I probably didn't expect this, but he said that everyone would be better off because of it, so I wouldn't mind doing it for the sake of the family. When he realized I didn't want anything to do with Colin, I told him that he had broken my trust in the same way that his beloved son had. He told me to hold back my feelings and stop being so dramatic for one day. I told him that since it was my wedding day, he had no right to harm it. He told me to tone down my tendency to act out a bit, and that no one was hurting anything. It would have been smart of me to ask him why it was so important to keep up this family act for my wedding but not for Colin's. I was so mad at him that I didn't even know he was married. All of these thoughts just came to me later. I was just really mad at the time. I just wanted to go over there, grab them by the collar, and leave. It didn't matter to me if it caused a fuss or hurt the family's image. It was enough for me for them to leave. When Rick made an idea that was both much less physical and much more mean, I couldn't think straight. After telling me that there was only one way to get back at everyone, he said it was possible if I agreed. I really liked the idea, but I didn't want to ruin Meg's day, and it was too thrilling. For a wedding. I told Rick I would think about it and get back to him. After seeing Colin and his wife, Meg asked me what was going on. The wedding went off without a hitch, though. I gave her a short background on what had happened. I took her aside after the wedding to ask if she was okay with me carrying out Rick and my plan. She was a little nervous, but she told me she fully backed me, and that there was no better place or time than now to start a family. When family and close friends were sitting together, I thanked her and said, "God, I love my wife." I then told her to just chill out and enjoy the show. Some people stood up to make a toast. We were going to toast Colin and tell everyone how he slept with my ex-girlfriend, which is why we broke up, and how he helped me meet my wife. Rick started the whole thing. I would say a lot in my toast, which is mean to Colin and my parents, but they deserve it. My parents did it because they didn't care about how I felt or the pain I was in, and Colin did it because he was a jerk. They only cared about Colin's and the family's good name in society. I planned to tear them both apart in public. As soon as everyone was done talking about Meg and me, I got up and said I needed to make a toast too. I don't remember what I said exactly, but I'll give you the main idea. At first, I said that I wanted to honor Colin, my dear brother. As soon as I told him, he and my parents turned white as snow. However, his wife was just confused, and I thought she didn't know why Colin and I were splitting up. Plus, she was very pregnant, which made things even better. I was mad too at that point. Why would he bring his pregnant wife to my wedding and show her off? From what I could tell, his only goal was to steal the show. Anyhow, I kept eating my toast. I wanted to thank Colin, even though he betrayed me and hit me in the back in a way that made him look like an enemy. It was his betrayal that led me to Meg. I told him that Colin and I were brothers for a very long time. I went on to talk about how, when I was 26, I fell in love with a woman who wasn't right for me, but I wasn't smart enough or young enough to see all of her flaws. I didn't break up with her until she did something really bad. Then I told everyone in the room the truth. Finally, telling my ex-girlfriend that she had cheated on me with my brother was the last straw. That made me break up with her, heal, and meet my wife Meg. I didn't spare my parents either. I said I was glad my parents would bring Colin and his wife in without me knowing, even though I had been mad at him for a long time and hadn't talked to him in 5 years. Eventually be able to thank Colin for what he did and for making the right things happen in my life. It made me happy that my parents were embarrassed, even though I already knew they were. They had broken all of my rules, and I wasn't going to give them up so easily. The sound of the gasps from the crowd made it sound like my mom might melt down. The situation could not be calmed down. Everyone was able to hear everything I said. His wife, whose name I don't even know, was looking at him in shock, so Colin couldn't look up or look people in the eye. Rick, Meg, and I did nothing to make things better for him, and it was very upsetting for him. They looked at the floor while they were sitting there. Mom was trying very hard not to cry and Dad was fidgeting, but the room was so quiet that Mom's tiniest sniffles could be heard. I thought I could hear my heartbeat in that strange stillness. I made my toast and then just sat down to eat. Everyone was looking at Colin and my family, but no one spoke. His wife was the last person to get up, told us they were sorry on his behalf, and thanked us for asking them to join the fun. After that, she ran off. Even though she wasn't at fault, I felt terrible for making her go through this shame. She shouldn't have been caught in the gunfire, and I had to talk to both my parents and Colin about it. The real fun didn't begin until my parents and my beloved brother left. I got a lot of texts from my parents, especially my mom, saying that I ruined their pride in front of everyone, and that I shouldn't wear the family's dirty clothes everywhere. I didn't answer because I wanted to enjoy at least part of my wedding. Mom's been texting Meg ever since, and I can tell it's getting on her nerves. Even though I told her to stop her mother, Meg keeps messaging her from different Instagram accounts or calling her from different phones. All of this bad stuff is really hurting Meg, and I feel bad that I let her experience it. She doesn't deserve it. She was the one who saved me, and now I've brought her down with me, which is wrong. I told my mom to stop involving Meg in the drama, but she says I did it by starting the fight at the wedding, and that Meg and I now have to deal with the results of my actions. Because my mom is stubborn and nothing I say will change her mind, I know it's not worth my time to fight with her. I also can't expect her to because what I did was bad, so I won't. Because of my little revenge trip, my wife is in pain, which is something I don't want for her at all. What should I do to get my mother to stop bothering us? I feel like I've caused more trouble than I've solved. First change, my sister Amy called me. I called her because I didn't have her number saved. She was very nice, and she said she was sorry for calling without notice. She said, though, that Colin's story was very different from hers, so she wanted to see me and hear my story. She begged me to say nothing to her family about her visit, but I told her I don't talk to them anyway, so she was good with that. I had mixed views about this, to be honest. But Meg told us that we had to help her because she was going to have a baby soon and should know Colin's true nature. I'm sure Meg is right, even if this makes things worse. Amy needs to learn that she's not to blame. Personally, she has never hurt me, so I can't make her life worse. Even though I was very nervous, I agreed to meet her. There is no way this will end well for Colin. It has gone much further than I thought it would. All the bad things that happened to Colin are his fault, so I don't feel sorry for him. I don't want to get involved in family problems again, and I definitely don't want Meg to be a part of it. I hope it works out even though I know it won't. I know this drama won't end when I meet Amy today because of how she reacted to my tantrum at the wedding. Note 2, I think the meeting went well. I felt bad for her. She came by herself, and since she's pregnant, it looks like the baby will come any second. It looked like she was crying. Lucky for them, Meg was there too and helped calm things down. It was Amy who said she wanted to hear the whole story again when I asked her if she had any questions. I told her everything, including how I talked to him about it and how I found out about it. I also told her that my mother was putting pressure on me to get things back to normal between Colin and me because of family duties. She told me that Shay fell in love with Colin, even though Colin said we were friends when I asked her what story Colin had told her. I ended our friendship because I couldn't admit that I had liked her for a long time. Also, Colin and she only dated for a short time a year after I stopped talking to her. I told her that whole thing was a lie. I never asked them or tried to find out how long they dated, so I have no idea. When I asked her about it, she said that my parents had not told her the same story as Colin. She said Colin told her that it was a touchy subject for the family, and that my parents didn't want to talk about me because I had shut everyone down. She rarely talked about me when she saw her parents. I asked her if she had gotten an invitation to the wedding. They were mostly being pushed to leave by their mother, she said. Amy told them they didn't need to go because they hadn't been invited. She was also aware that Colin and I didn't get along. But Mom pretty much forced them both to go by using threats. Colin didn't want to go either. She said her mother told her that for the sake of the child, we should forget about the past and get back together as a family. She never asked me because she thought I would have told my mom that I wanted Colin to be there. She also had no idea that reality would be so very different from what she thought it would be that it would completely turn her life upside down. I felt bad for her, but I didn't know what to do. I told her to get in touch with me if I can help her in any way. My brother is a bad guy who lies to his wife and cheats his brother. I don't want his wife to have to go through this. Given that she seemed pretty upset about the whole thing, I think she will file for divorce. I only hope that things go well for her. It's hard to be a single mother. If you ask Colin and my mom, they both blame me for what happened, but my dad just called me and told me. I just recently heard from him that Colin was having a rough time and that he might try to call me, but he has asked me to stay away. I told him that I hadn't been seeing him until they decided to ask him to my wedding. He didn't say anything about that. It looks like my mom and Colin are trying to get in touch with me, but they can't because they've been banned from everywhere. I don't know the details of the split, but I know Colin isn't doing a good job because he really loves Amy. What a great day it was. I think that his bad luck has finally caught up with him. Amy makes me sad, and Meg and I are going to be there for her when the baby is born, but I don't feel bad about what I did or guilty about Colin. It's due to him. He broke me on purpose once, and now he's broken himself. It's just the way things are when you break someone's trust and let them down.